Dolls. They're nothing more than an innocent children's toy or elegant looking antique on a collector's shelf. Or are they? Some seem to have a very dark side to them, and here are 5 that are said to be especially cursed. Let's first start with Mandy. Mandy is an antique German doll that was made in the early 1900s. She was donated to Canada's Quesnel Museum in 1991 because her owner simply could not cope with the strange things happening in her home. More often than not, the owner would hear the sound of a crying baby echoing through the house. The crying was clearly coming from the basement, and oddly, this was where Mandy the doll was kept. When the owner would go down there, the sound of crying would stop and the basement window would always be opened. After believing the doll was haunted, the owner gave the doll to the museum. The crying stopped and the window was never found open again. After Mandy was put on display at the museum, the place seemed to take on the bizarre curses the doll appears to possess. Things mysteriously disappear, food disappears from fridges and ends up in drawers, and electrical equipment often instantly drains whilst near Mandy. Visitors feel uneasy around her and have witnessed her eyes following them around the room. Workers have heard Mandy tapping on her case, and when someone goes in to check on her, her hand has always moved and is positioned on the glass. It's been said that Mandy is not necessarily an evil doll, she just wants attention and doesn't like being left alone. When left in the night, workers often find items scattered all over the floor by the morning. The museum put a little lamb toy in Mandy's case so that she wasn't so lonely, and one day the lamb was found out of the locked case and was lying on the floor. When Mandy taps on the glass or gives signs she is lonely, staff will carry her around the building to calm her down, and in the night one of the staff members will bring her to their office, sit her on their lap and continue working. It's unknown why Mandy is said to be haunted, but investigators say that there is the spirit of a sweet child inside. The story is that a little girl was locked in a basement with the doll. After passing away, the girl's spirit got trapped inside the doll, and it's believed this is why Mandy was crying in her previous owner's basement. Today, Mandy is still on display at the Quesnel Museum, and hundreds of people each year visit to see this incredibly cursed doll. The Devil Baby Doll. This next story begins in New Orleans. During the 1800s, the legend is that a lady married a wealthy Scotsman. Her ex-lover was very jealous and asked Marie Laveau, the supposed queen of voodoo, to curse his ex-girlfriend. Long story short, the now cursed lady gave birth to her first child. Sadly, she died during labour and the baby seemed to possess the curse its mother was carrying. The baby was believed to be the progeny of Satan himself. The voodoo queen must have felt awful and decided to care for the baby. It's unsure how, but this so-called devil baby died and was buried alongside her mother in the St. Louis cemetery. Strangely, the citizens of New Orleans reported that after the baby passed away, it could be seen hiding in the shadows and alleys and was given the name the Devil Baby. The townsfolk would carve fake devil babies out of gourds and hang the dolls outside their homes to frighten off the real one. In the early 20th century, new versions of the Devil Baby doll began appearing around New Orleans. These were said to look exactly like the real Devil Baby, and because of this, these dolls are believed to be possessed. Artist Riccardo Pustiano claims to have been able to buy remnants of the last remaining doll from that era and currently recreates them for purchase. Many customers have claimed these dolls are evil, following you with their glass eyes and moving on their own. One owner told of a time where the Devil Baby doll littered their kitchen floor with items. The couple had no pets or children and strongly blamed the doll for the incident. The dolls now come with a buyer beware warning because it appears the spirit of the Devil Baby is alive and living within the dolls. It's also been said that if you look into their eyes, you can almost see the flicker of a trapped, unhappy soul. Doll Island. No haunted doll video would be complete without the terrifying island that is situated just south of Mexico City. Known as Isla de las Muñecas, or the Island of the Dolls, it's not only the home for several hundred dolls, but this island also comes with a terrifying story of a little girl who lost her life on the island. She was said to have been found drowned many years ago on the island by the former local Don Julian Santana Barrera. After finding her body, Barrera saw a doll floating down the canal believed to be the girl's. He retrieved it and hung it on a tree as a sign of respect for the girl's spirit. Barrera was apparently haunted by the spirit of the girl and started hanging more dolls as he thought this would please her. Before he knew it, the dolls became possessed and Barrera started hanging hundreds around the island. Those close to him believe he was driven by some unseen force which completely changed him. In 2001, around 50 years after he started collecting the dolls, Barrera died of a heart attack. There are rumours he was found dead in the same spot where the girl drowned. It's believed Barrera's spirit has also possessed the dolls. The current owner, who is Barrera's cousin, says the dolls can be seen moving their heads, arms, and even opening their eyes. At night time, they are heard whispering to each other. Barrera's cousin says it's very creepy, but he is now used to it. If there's one place in the world that proves dolls can be haunted, then it's definitely the creepy Isla de las Muñecas island. Haunted Harold. Haunted Harold is easily one of the most infamous cursed dolls around. The story starts with a man called Greg who listed Harold on eBay alongside his personal encounters he had with the doll. He bought the believed 1930s doll from a man at a market who told him that the doll brought an eerie presence into their home after their son died. Singing and whispering could be heard from their son's bedroom. When they went in to check, nothing would be there that would make these noises, apart from Harold. After all this, he kept Harold in the shed before deciding to sell him. Apparently, the new owner also started experiencing Harold's dark presence. Just 2 days after owning him, his partner left him, his cat passed away, and he started to have terrible headaches. A priest told him to burn the doll, but Harold simply would not burn, so Greg put him in a small coffin and kept him in the basement. After this, the sound of crying and laughing children was heard coming from where Harold was now kept. Harold was sold to a lady who sold him on a year later as she couldn't handle him. Since then, he has been passed around and is believed to have caused many accidents and terrifying paranormal experiences. No one can seem to keep him, but he is currently owned by Anthony Quinata. Shortly after Anthony received the doll, he saw people physically and mentally affected in front of his eyes whilst in Harold's presence. Harold was put in storage in 2005 and taken out in 2013 to be investigated. Since he has been let out, the stories are endless. All psychics who read him say they want nothing to do with the doll, and Anthony tells of one creepy story where he and some friends were talking about Harold. All of a sudden, he felt a sharp stabbing pain in his lower back. His friend at the time was looking up Harold on her phone, and as soon as she was told to stop, the pain started to go. The next day, Anthony noticed a huge bruise where he felt the pain the day before, and is certain Harold was behind the attack. He believes it was because his friend was looking him up on the internet whilst in Harold's presence. In 2014, Cursed Harold was featured on an episode of Ghost Adventures, where the crew took him to the doll island I previously mentioned. They experienced some very bizarre things, but the most extreme was that the lead investigator received 3 bruises on his left arm. This was very similar to what Anthony had before. Oddly, the lead investigator had been holding Harold the haunted doll that day, leading many to believe he was the cause. The last story is that Harold can make people sick. A few viewers who watched the Ghost Adventures episode claim Harold made them ill after they or their family mocked him, with one viewer throwing up blood the next day. So it seems that it's not just the owner of the doll who has bad experiences, but those that mock or insult him will also face the power of Harold the haunted doll. Annabelle. Okay, I know Annabelle has been talked about a lot, but the stories about this doll are just terrifying and I can't leave them out. Annabelle was purchased in 1970 from an antique hobby store. The lady who bought the doll wanted it for a birthday present for her daughter, Donna. Donna was a college student living with a roommate called Angie and Angie's partner, Lou. At first, Annabelle the doll didn't seem anything special, just a regular doll anyone would get as a gift. But over time, Donna and her roommate noticed Annabelle began moving on her own. At first they thought nothing of it, but soon things began happening that they couldn't ignore, and realised there was something very dark about this doll. Annabelle appeared to be fully mobile. Donna and Angie would come home to find the doll in a completely different room from which they had left it, and oftentimes Annabelle would be found cross-legged on the living room chair with her arms folded. Apparently, Donna tested Annabelle by placing her on the chair before leaving work. Once she returned, Annabelle was found back in her room on the bed with the door closed. Around a month after having her, the roommate started to find penciled messages on parchment paper that read "Help us" and "Help Lou." What's eerie is that Donna said she never kept parchment paper in the house and has no idea where it came from. These "Help Lou" messages must have been for her friend Lou, who never liked the doll and often told Donna to get rid of it. When sleeping at Donna's, Lou began having nightmares that Annabelle was choking him in his bed. He would wake up terrified and knew there was something dark going on. A few days after his nightmare, he and Angie were hanging out in the house when they heard the sound of something moving around in Donna's room. After Lou investigated, he saw Annabelle sitting in the corner of the room. He turned away as he felt someone was standing behind him and realised there was a series of burning, raking claw marks on his chest. He knew Annabelle had something to do with it, and not long after, a priest was called who in turn called demonologist Ed and Lorraine Warren. They concluded Anna was the cause and were confident there was a demon attached to her. A priest performed an exorcism on the apartment and the Warrens took possession of the cursed doll. They put her in a bag and began the long drive home. Ed agreed to stay off the highways because there was a concern that the doll may affect the car. Sure enough, as they drove on the back roads, their engine kept cutting out, the power steering kept failing, and even the brakes gave them trouble. Ed opened the bag, sprinkled the doll with holy water, and the disturbances stopped, but not for long. Ed and Lorraine called in a Catholic priest to exorcise Annabelle, but the priest didn't take it seriously, telling Annabelle, "You're just a doll, you can't hurt anyone." Apparently, on his way home, the priest's brakes failed and his car was totaled in a horrific accident. Luckily he survived, but believes it was caused by him taunting the cursed doll. As well as that terrifying story, Annabelle is believed to be responsible for one death. A young man visited the Warrens Museum to see Annabelle. He apparently started to mock the doll, and while doing so, he ran up and began tapping on the glass of her case. He challenged the doll to put scratches on him like it had supposedly done to Lou, and challenged her to give him her worst. Ed kicked the man out of the museum, and around 3 hours later, the man was dead. He lost control of his motorcycle and hit a tree. His girlfriend survived, but whether or not Annabelle was responsible for his death will forever remain a mystery. Annabelle is still locked away at the Warrens Museum today, but many wonder, is she biding her time just waiting for the day when someone opens her case? So, that's 5 dolls that are believed to be cursed. I hope you've enjoyed this video and see you next week for another one.